Hey, Steve.
Hey,
So you were telling me that there's four industrial revolutions.
yes, there are four industrial revolutions that we've lived through three of them.
Really?
And the fourth one is blockchain.
Wow. Blockchain. You guys are going to have to stay tuned and watch this show. This will be the first of 3 parts.
Blockchain.
Yeah. Hi, Steve.
Hello, Steve. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. And you?
Terrific. I couldn't get better. Welcome everybody here to the Steve and Steve show. I hope you're all doing very well as we looks like we're moving into some winter wonderland here.
We are. So we're back in our kitchen studio.
Yes, it's cold out there. I kind of wanted to be outside, but it's a little cold.
Yep. So welcome. Thank you for hitting play. I'm Steve Walsh.
And I'm Steve Wastenberg.
So Steve, we have
Yes.
very full cups of coffee. What are these?
These are actually lattes. I think when I did yours, I kind of made a brain on top. It's some latte art.
Is it
It could also be an alien.
I was going to ask if it's an alien brain.
It could be an alien brain. But
All right.
cheers. Nice and hot
Cheers.
on a nice cold day outside. So, what are we doing?
All right. So we do have a topic, and this topic is going to expand multiple sessions. So
3 total, right?
That's right. So this is our first session. So if you're catching it, it's the first session.
1 of 3. 1 of 3. And you're not going to want to miss these.
No,
These are-
because it gets there. What we've got planned for what we put down for an outline is really exciting. So I think that the best way to bring up the topic is we were talking earlier over a different cup of coffee, and you brought up that we're going into a 4th industrial revolution.
Absolutely. The 4th industrial revolution.
So I think so. It's interesting that you've come to that conclusion, and now you're kind of preaching that. So I think it'd be best to bring everyone up to speed and talk about the first 3, and then we can introduce the 4th.
That's probably a good idea. And I want to make sure it's not my idea, the 4th industrial revolution. It's actually out there. It may not be, tons of people talk about it yet, but believe me when I say this will be talked about soon in the next within the next 5 years. This is going to be like the major topic, I think. You've heard the information age, right?
Yeah.
Well, that actually happens to be the 3rd industrial revolution. Well, let's go back. What do you think the first industrial revolution was, people out there?
You give them time for them to answer.
Okay. Oh, you're exactly right, John. John, I heard you speak up way back there in wherever you are. The steam engine, all right? The steam engine in the 19th century was invented, and it changed what was at that time an agricultural world into an industrial world.
So is that when you mentioned was it the steam engine, or was it more? And it might be crossing into the next one, like the steel industry.
Well, so the steam engine is what really facilitated the steel industry to explode from the standpoint of being able to cut this stuff. Before, when you would forge steel, you'd forge it and you'd do a lot of manual cutting and things. With the steam engine, you were able to cut all kinds of things with various types of driving on the steam engine. The locomotive,
Right. Well,
right?
and then they had the race to connect the rail system across the country.
Absolutely, across the whole country. So the steam engine did the locomotive, the steam engine did powered industry, powered agriculture, a lot of the different equipment that were going on. You had steam tractors. The steam engine was a very powerful system. And that really changed the way that people, when they were living in that kind of agrarian world or that agricultural world, they were outside of cities. With the advent of the steam engine, a lot of the people started moving into bigger cities
Right.
because of all the industry that was going on. So that's the first one, the steam engine.
Well, and with the steam engine, you do get, it's not just railroad, right? It's boats, right? So
Absolutely. And so what does railroad and boats do in terms of the world?
Yep, allows the commerce of trade to happen faster.
Transportation, logistics
Right.
that happened across. So now all of a sudden the world, where before it was only connected with, let's say, this ship that would sail over in a month or something.
Right, they had to use the wind power to get across the ocean. Right?
Rivers, same thing. You know, you'd have the rivers where the steam engines would go up the rivers, as opposed to like a paddle type.
Okay. So that was the first one.
Big time changes for
Definitely.
mobility in terms of transportation, but logistics really and a lot of commerce.
Okay.
The second one then was kind of off of the steam engine. The steam engine was great, but it was rather large and kind of cumbersome. And along comes the invention of the gas or combustible engine.
Okay.
The gas engine, and that actually extended the kinds of things that the steam engine was doing, but it also went to the automobile, right?
Right.
And from the automobile,
a lot of things.
it started with the automobile.
Okay.
So whereas the steam engine, let's say, supplanted, if you will, stagecoaches, and it didn't get rid of them, but it certainly, the trains started coming in, said, well, maybe we don't have to have this stagecoach anymore because we got a train coming across the United States.
Right.
Cars, as they started coming in, we had carriages and the horse and buggy, and that was taken over by the car. It's interesting. Every time when these industrial revolutions come along, the vast majority of the people go, oh, come on, that's ridiculous. People used to say, you're really going to replace the horse when the car came along, right? Are you serious? That stinky looking thing that's just going to pollute the people that are driving in it, and they're going to die from noxious fumes, or it's going to blow up, whereas my horse can get me anywhere.
So where you saw like tack stores or shops, right, where and the horseshoe, that was a common thing to see down a main street of a town, right? And then when the car came around, it kind of eliminated a lot of that business.
It did.
So that's that whip and buggy type business is what they refer to. But you could still find those businesses. It's just more for the folks that are into that type of thing. Like you still have horses and people do buggies.
Sure.
But it's more
nostalgic,
novelty,
kind of.
or maybe it's races or whatever. Right? There's something there. It's not a main source of transportation like it was.
And it's just something you bring up here, that it was a radical change, right? Mm-hmm. Every time one of these, that's why it's called a revolution. It's a radical change to go from kind of that Western world, even though it was not only a Western world, but that world to this cars. And now transportation wasn't just logistics and a group of people crossing somewhere. It was you and I having our own vehicle, which ended up creating what in the United States that actually, and kind of ironically, put the railroad on a lower tier.
Right. And
it was the interstate system, right?
Interstate, and also, if we really look at like main transportation, when the railroad was there, well, it's railroad, right? You to go across the country, you took the railroad.
Right.
Now with the engine becoming more and more, they fine tune it, right? And so now we have jets, right? And that's still kind of in the same grouping of that combustible engine.
It did. You're absolutely right. It moved to that.
Yeah. So that really pulled the world together, because now you can jump in a jet in Los Angeles and within a day be in Europe.
Yeah, and you just jumped from Henry Ford in around 1903 to, well, the 1960s, let's say. So you made a big jump there as well.
Right.
You hopped on a jet in this conversation.
We're limited on time.
Well, but you bring something up really important here. Let's think of when those steam engines really started. About the first third of the 19th century. So let's say 1830s, 40s, 50s. And then into the half and the second. That's when the steam engine started to come about. Mm-hmm. And then it really got its fortunate to do that.
Yep.
Wheels going towards the end of the 19th century and early 20th century. So it took what used to be hundreds and hundreds of years, arguably over 1,000 years, the horse, the buggy, the kind of transportation that was all of that,
Okay.
and in a matter of a century,
Yep.
supplanted it. Now the combustion engine, and I like your jet analogy because it's going to get faster as we go.
Right.
It went from, let's say, late 1800s when you first saw a combustible engine into the early 1900s where the cars started going, which within 60 years we had, not even 60, within 60 years, 50 years, we had jets.
Right.
Within 60 years, we had someone on the moon.
Yep.
70, all right, I'll give you 70 years. But think of the acceleration. So it keeps on. So sorry, I keep moving away.
Scoot yourself out of this.
I'm getting excited about all this acceleration that's happening here.
So I think we got a good picture of that second industrial revolution.
Okay,
All right.
so the second is the combustible. The third industrial revolution, is it another engine?
No.
It is not, except maybe kind of.
Kind of.
It's a different kind of engine, and that is the computer.
Right.
Oftentimes people talk about it as the information age. Really started right about World War II, but it really got its legs going
Right.
in the 60s. It did get us on the moon. You wouldn't have got on the moon just with a engine or a rocket engine.
Right.
It started to do that. And now it's gotten to, so in that time when we had a computer in 1950s, let's say IBM, it was a room, the size of the room we're in, bigger than that, right?
Yeah.
How big?
That was a good
200
size room.
square foot,
Yeah,
500
I was trying
square
to
foot
think
room?
of the movie that they just released a couple of years ago. The girls who were doing the crunching. I can't remember the name of it, but they were black girls that really were smart, and they did the number crunching.
Oh,
and
yeah.
They actually got the IBM computer going.
Right.
For-
I can't remember the name of that either. In fact, I only saw the preview. I don't think I've seen that movie. I got to see that.
Yeah.
If somebody remembers that, put it in the comments
Yeah.
for us. That'll help us out. But that computer was in a very large room and could maybe do some small calculations. This computer right here, an iPhone.
Well, you say small calculations compared to what they do now, but it was still a complex.
It was huge.
calculation.
It was. But I'm just saying, what I'm trying to get the point of is this acceleration, how quickly
Yep.
this acceleration starts to happen. Because this was only 50 years later, and this thing can do so much beyond. And what computers have done for us is astounding,
Well,
right?
the phone that you just held up has more power than the Apollo capsule that made it to
Right. So think of that. That Apollo spaceship rocket that went to the moon and got people on the moon was nowhere close to the power that's in this iPhone. And mine's an old iPhone. Well, not that old, but it's older.
Right.
Right. And that's just accelerating, right?
Right.
So the information age, what I'm trying to get to is, the time is accelerating. We've gone from, let's say, the middle of the 19th century to where we are today,
right, and
it keeps on accelerating
if you
in
look
terms
at-
of how quick the advance goes.
it's interesting, right? So we talked about the whip and buggy, right? But then there was the phone book business. When's the last time you saw a phone book?
Right.
Right. So my wife, well, I actually worked for the same company at one time. We worked for the company that delivered phone books. Well, they just went out of business earlier this year.
Wow, they survived a long time.
They survived longer than most people thought they were going to survive, but they still, we're doing the phone books. But now with the internet, the computers, us basically having, a huge computer in our palm in our hands, there's no need for those books.
Right.
Right? Now there's still a population that does use the books, but it's really, I would probably another 5-10 years though that population is not going to be really using a whole lot of it much.
Well, and so we can only imagine. So we're at the 20th century and the 21st century of the computers, which is information age is the third industrial revolution. And we've seen the kind of advances that we've had in the last even 20 years in terms of the internet and how far we've gone with transportation, logistics, communication. People, you say something like a pay telephone to the younger generation now, and they frankly barely know what it is. You and I,
Right.
we would go and put a quarter in a phone, and it's not even something. Now, that's one small example of it. There are much bigger examples of the changes.
Yeah.
So how could something, we've talked about 3 industrial revolutions, and we introduced this with the 4th industrial revolution.
Right. But
Seriously, is there really something that could be more than this information age?
Well, that's the thing is if you think about the piece that changed society, changed the way humans live on each of those was very small, and it probably during that time when they first developed it, didn't think you just couldn't imagine.
They laughed at it.
Yeah. Well, you just couldn't imagine, right? That would be the one item that's going to change everything. Like when that first computer was, all it did was, I'm not sure if it even might have done a 1 + 1 = 2 type thing, and it showed it through a light bulb of the answer.
Right.
So thinking it from that standpoint, when it first started, to think that's going to change the world.
Well, people are going, seriously?
You just can't vision it, right?
Right. Look, I've got a car, I've got all of this, and
so
so
the fourth industrial revolution has already been, it's already in place.
It is in the beginnings, yes.
It's already kicked off for a few years, not just like it didn't start yesterday or last year. It's already been moving, and it's moving at a rapid pace. But a lot of people don't realize
they don't even know
it's there. Right?
A lot of people don't even know.
So
Steve.
let's.
Do I need a drum roll? What is the 4th industrial revolution? Ladies and gentlemen, straight from the 21st century, the 4th industrial revolution is blockchain. Huh?
It wasn't Nintendo?
No.
Mario?
Blockchain.
Not Mario Kart.
Not Mario Kart. Blockchain. Now, there are people right now on this saying, I've kind of heard of blockchain. Seriously, Steve? Blockchain? Is that what you're really saying is the next thing here? And don't you think that people that saw that first steam engine, and it was this massive belching steamy thing going, what is that going to do? And I'm talking the very beginning one. They're going, that isn't going to do it. And then trains came out of that. The combustible engine, the gas engine.
Right.
They laughed at Henry Ford.
Right, but I think looking back at those, people can see that now, right? Looking back, 2020 vision on history is clear. But when you're in the midst of a change, right? You're in the midst of the change. How do you know that is the thing that's changed? There's a lot of cool stuff out there right now, right? So how do we know that it's blockchain? We don't really know.
Oh, we know.
But I think the odds are there, right? And I'm going to agree with you because you and I have discussed it a lot. So I know a little bit more about blockchain. But how do we really know that is the item, right? Because there's lots of cool things. We've got solar now. We've got they've got these droids now.
They're all going to be connected with blockchain. By the way.
Right. So it goes down to a simplistic change of paradigm.
It does. And that was what I was trying to say when you get those people that would look at these various things during those big paradigm changes for each industrial revolution at the time, as you say, they're like, I don't really see. Maybe it's that, maybe it's not. The thing about blockchain and why it's interesting, first of all, quick little thing on blockchain, and we're going to go into deeper on this on the next video, but Bitcoin, yes, you have heard of Bitcoin.
So now we're talking cryptocurrency.
Well,
Bitcoin.
That's what everybody thinks, but really, Bitcoin introduced blockchain to the world, and everybody thinks of Bitcoin as a cryptocurrency. And while that is true, it is a currency. The bigger thing, in my opinion, that it did was introduce the concept of blockchain. And I want to just talk briefly about blockchain.
Yeah, so my question at this point, because we're
going to talk about Bitcoin next time. We're not talking about it this time.
Well, that was my question.
Okay.
Because we're about 20 minutes in, and we're just hitting blockchain. And so my question is, do you think you could really explain blockchain to our audience in less than 2 minutes?
Yeah, well, what I can do is introduce it, because we're going to really be talking about blockchain in the next segment.
Okay.
But I think in this one, it'd be important for us to actually introduce it in here.
Okay.
So that people get a concept of why is blockchain different.
All right.
And the key thing to remember in this is the difference between, these are my opinions, observations, education. The key difference between centralized and decentralized. And I want you to think of that in a broad sense. Centralized in the sense of a railroad. There is somebody that owns that railroad, and they are the power behind it. Centralized in the sense of this auto company. There's somebody that owns that auto company, and we go and service. There is a government that says we are the government here, and you all pay your taxes to us. Those are all examples of a centralized world. A computer. I have this computer, and it's kind of a mainframe, or it's a computer that all these other computers connect into in a centralized way. All right? Those are all centralized. Decentralized, on the other hand, is not one controller, not one central authority.
Okay.
And that is where I think this time we ought to kind of leave blockchain, and we'll leave them kind of hanging. But that is so important to understand that we're talking about, and I'm not going to say that there aren't centralized blockchains, but the true blockchain is decentralized. There is no one controller. Back to the idea of Bitcoin, and again, we're not going to go deep into Bitcoin, but the idea of Bitcoin is no one person, entity, controller controls Bitcoin.
Okay, so you have defined decentralized and centralized, but you haven't defined what blockchain is.
Great, thank you. Boy, we almost practiced that? No, we didn't.
We did not practice it, but I was
trying
to pay attention here.
Think of a database, all right? And you're in the IT world, so you know a database is a central repository of data that people go to get information out, right? Typically. All right, well, that database is typically in an area that is controlled by something or somebody or some entity, right? Blockchain, on the other hand, is a bunch of nodes. So if you think of the databases, it's got kind of a ledger of all the transactions that are happening in this, right? But it's all centralized here. If you blew up that database, unless you got it backed up, the database is gone, right?
Okay.
Decentralized, or blockchain, is a number of different computers that each have a copy of the full ledger or database on every one of the nodes. If this node, and they're all interacting and they're all validating each other. If this node or this computer blows up, it doesn't affect the data because all of them have an exact replicated copy. And every time information is added to the blockchain, it goes in a block. All of the computers on that blockchain have that and validated. And it only gets added when it is validated as true information.
So in the true sense of the decentralized blockchain, you're stating that it's utilizing so many computers that's not controlled by one entity or one group that makes it that the data is out there with all the different groups that have the computers, and so not one person controls it. There's multiple copies, therefore it's decentralized and it's more secure.
It is more secure. It is more redundant. It is immutable in that it can't be changed, and you can't do it. Actually gets stronger as the more nodes build on, and it's designed to entice more nodes to grow onto it.
All right. So, Steve, I think that was an introduction, but yet a teaser.
It is a teaser. We're gonna have to come back to this on the next one.
Yeah, because it's definitely it's an interesting topic. I think it's going to be it definitely is a hard concept for a lot of people to grasp. Computers in general are a hard concept for a lot of people to grasp. So introducing blockchain is not just one layer of complexity, it's a multi-layer complexity to this subject. So,
well, and we're not going to go deep down any kind of rabbit hole. The next one we're going to talk about, we're going to actually talk about some of those things in and around blockchain that are a lot more easy to understand. And I don't want to get you all confused about this. So
let's do this. So if you're still with us, thank you for watching.
Thank you very much.
And you've got to watch the next one because we're going to basically demystify what we just talked about on blockchain and what it is. A little bit more. Try to get a little bit more clarity of the components and how we can use it and how that's going to change. This is a multi-part. Shooting for 3. I'm thinking we might have to do a bonus.
It'll be 3
because this is a good topic.
The key takeaway though on this is when we talked in the beginning about the industrial revolutions, that this 4th industrial revolution, those who are talking about blockchain think that it will be bigger than the internet. Now take that. The internet was obviously huge for everybody on this. We couldn't be doing what we're doing without the internet. And this will be bigger than the internet, so say the pundits.
Yep. So there's your teaser. Make sure you subscribe so you can
tell your friends and family.
And hit that bell, that notification, because when we produce the next video that goes deeper into blockchain, you're gonna want to see that. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification button and share this video for others because this is something that we all need to understand and get a good understanding about it. So.
And there's investment opportunities here.
We'll definitely get into that too. So all right, Steve, good job on this one. Thanks for watching. Enjoy.